Hello everyone, it's me Arden and in this video I'm going to be answering a question from one of the members of the Repatterning Parlor who asks, is it normal that after I've made some progress in my healing that I'm feeling way more emotional than before? I used to be really stone-faced and level-headed, and now I notice that I'm tearing up at really small things. I don't feel flashbacks necessarily, this person says, but I'm really wondering how I can handle these newfound emotions that are coming up. This is a wonderful question. So first of all, thank you for asking this to the member of the Repatterning Parlor who asked this question. By the way, if you're watching this and you're not familiar yet with the Repatterning Parlor, if you haven't joined, it's the group that I moderate on Facebook. So go ahead and check the description box of this video where I have a link to the Repatterning Parlor and you can come join us, make some new friends, meet some like-minded individuals who are all sharing support with one another on their journeys. You can also ask for specific topics that you would like to see in these videos so you can get some of your questions answered too. So yes, getting into the topic at hand, first things first, yes, 100% this is normal and it is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I want to emphasize, you guys, about being level-headed and stony-faced. Oh man, did I have survival strategies that involved being level-headed and stony-faced. I, for the longest time, prided myself on believing that my strength, and specifically my endurance, were my virtues. What did this lead to? A lot of situations that I had to be strong and endure through, right? That can be fine. That's all part of our history, and we can also learn resilience in this way. But when we are in our trauma responses, it is very common when we're still caught in our trauma loops and running unconscious patterns, it is very common for us to experience what is known as desensitization. There are typically two polarities of trauma response that I'm going to be referencing in this, particular part of the video. Hyperarousal, which is when we feel that our trauma is happening like all the time, right? It's what I say when like, I joke that my apartment building, the fire alarm system is like always going off, even when there's not a fire, right? So that's like hyperarousal. And desensitization is when our alarm systems just don't work. They've just, they've been trying to tell us for too long, we've ignored them, and now our bodies just aren't speaking to us anymore. In many ways, trauma desensitization, this polarity of trauma response, is often what is happening when we talk about being stony-faced or level-headed. Oftentimes, we pride ourselves on, well, whatever comes my way, I can just handle it, right? And that's great. When we're surviving, when we're in survival mode, it's wonderful also to, to be able to credit ourselves for how strong we are and how much we've endured and how much we've survived. However, if we are surviving because we have managed to turn our emotions off, we're not going to be able to see red flags going into the future, right? So we actually really need our emotions and our body's capacity to communicate with us, to tell us how we're feeling at any given moment, right? And one thing that absolutely can happen is that as we're making progress in our healing, we may end up shedding, hopefully, we hopefully will end up at some point shedding the desensitization response that we've acquired as a survival coping mechanism to getting through so much pain and surviving through it, right? We don't want to blame ourselves for the ways that we coped when we were in survival mode, but we don't want to be living like that for the rest of our lives either. And we came to this world, we were born into this world to experience a range of emotion. And we really don't want to go about our lives feeling like we just have to be stoic through everything. A lot of our stoicism, if we're defining it in this capacity, if we're defining it as the ability to remain unfazed, to remain unbothered, a lot of our stoicism, and specifically our investment in an identity we have created as a survival coping mechanism to be stoic, as a way of getting through a shit ton of pain, um, that's not going to serve us forever. If we have feelings about something, we want to feel them, because our emotions are our guideposts to where we want to go and where we don't want to go. Our emotions and our feelings, our sensations in our bodies, are information that we can use for what kind of a life is going to make us happy, right? We really want to know how we feel about things. And if we're in a survival coping mechanism response where everything is getting thrown at us and we're just like, fine, 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 we're always fine, right? That robs us of our creative power of discernment. So it's a positive thing when we're feeling more emotions than before. And one thing that many people find, that I recommend, that I also found for myself, is that during this period of heightened sensitivity, of resensitization, we may find it helpful to go into a cocoon of healing for a little while, right? It's not uncommon for people who are repatterning, for people who are trauma healing, for people who have like a spiritual awakening, which, by the way, a lot of those things are kind of the same thing, just saying. It's not uncommon for people to feel really called to isolate and to say, you know what, going out and drinking with my buddies like I used to doesn't really call to me anymore. Or, or some people may say like, wow, I used to just eat burgers without thinking about it, but now I'm bringing more conscious awareness to my decisions, and I decided I don't want to eat meat anymore because every time I bite into this burger, I can't help thinking about the way that the cow was treated, and I'm feeling more about that now, right? Oh gosh, I can remember, I'm still not strictly a vegetarian, although I've certainly cut down a lot of my meat intake, and I've started to source the meat that I do eat when possible from farmers markets and local, basically I'm trying to get away from like a lot of industrialized farming for this reason. But y'all, oh my God, there was a time where I was like, I feel like I was like eating a pizza with chicken on it, and I was like, I feel like I can feel how sad this chicken is, right? Like it's like the body of the chicken retains the emotions of like when it was in the horrible living conditions of the farm it was like being raised on, or whatever. And it felt very strange. But this is a call for greater awareness, right? Because what we don't want to be is we don't want to be walking around just, oblivious, right? We don't want to walk around ignoring our emotions, because we're going to be like that Wall Street dude on the phone, right? Who's just like a jackass to everybody and is just worried about his like $1 million phone call, right? Like that's like, trust me, I have seen a lot of Wall Street dudes from living in New York for a while. And that is like, that is for sure like where desensitization will inevitably lead them, right? So our emotions are guideposts to our mastery. And if we've been squashing them down for a long time, and all of a sudden we set this intention to resensitize, it is very natural that they're going to come up in a way that feels stronger than we're used to. Sort of like if we're, if we haven't had a drink of alcohol for a while and then we have a drink, we're like, whoa, I got drunk a lot faster than I'm used to, right? It's because our body isn't accustomed to them. So we want to come into balance and harmony with our emotions. And this is a very positive first step, right? It might feel more intense now than we would like it to. We might be tearing up at things. Personally, you guys, I believe our sensitivity is where we get our wisdom, sensitivity is what helps us with our discernment. If we don't feel things, we won't know how we feel about things, and we won't know which things to choose. And this leads to lives that look good on paper, and where maybe like, we're racking up milestones or hallmarks that maybe look impressive to other people, but we wake up one day and we realize that we haven't been living for ourselves, and we're actually quite miserable because we haven't been feeling the things that we've been experiencing, so we haven't been discerning for what actually makes us happy. So getting in touch with our emotions, as overwhelming or as difficult or confronting as it may be at first, is absolutely a key step toward our mastery, because ultimately we want to be in that place where we are so cool with the things that we're feeling that they can come up for us, and we'll essentially know how to like solo workshop them, you guys. And we may, do this, we may choose to do this work with a facilitator for a while, and indeed we should. Even I have a coach that I still work with. And when I have emotions come up for me, I have an energy worker, specifically. She's more of an an energy worker than a coach. She prefers the term alchemist, emotional alchemist. And when there's stuff that comes up for me, I will absolutely work with her to work through those emotions in a way that is positive and that is, transmuting them and not repressing them, right? But what I want to learn from those emotions is I want to learn wisdom. When I'm angry, what is that telling me? When I'm sad about something, what is that telling me? When I feel joy about something, what is that telling me, right? What is that telling me about the experience that I'm creating? This is how trauma ends up robbing us of our power, you guys, and why repatterning is so important. At least I believe it is, because human beings that are walking around in trauma responses, such as hyperarousal and desensitization, or any hybrid of the two, are much more easily controllable in society, because it's easier to tell them what they want or what will fill the void, right? When I think about how desensitized I was and how much money I spent on stupid shoes, right? Or how I somehow thought that was important, without being able to realize that the moment that I got the shoes and put them away at home in my closet, they just turned into another thing that I had that wasn't making me any happier, right? Being in touch with my emotions allows me to discern what is making me happy so that I can create a life that is based on that. So our emotions are key to our wisdom. So if emotions are coming up for you more than you're used to, ride with that wave for a little bit. Cocoon off when you need to, right? We feel that impulse often to hibernate because, like the butterfly in the cocoon, we are going through a great deal of transformation. And that safe space in order to do that work is paramount, right? We don't want to walk out into the world just feeling like a raw open wound. Sometimes we have to because of capitalism, right? But as much as possible, we want to honor ourselves and honor our process. And so when those emotions come up, it's very natural for us to want to say, like, let's I'm feeling stuff, I'm gonna go home and be alone. And I would prefer that we do that than rather try to squash things down so we can get through life as it used to be. The more we surrender to our feelings, the more we let what's coming up come up, the easier it's going to be. Easier? Do I mean easier? The easier we'll make it for ourselves to be on this path and to be on this journey. I know for me, the thing that helped me the most was just purely surrendering. That sounds kind of weird to talk about or describe without going into it in more detail. But essentially, I didn't try to resist the path by hanging on to my idea of who I was. And when I realized that priding myself on strength and endurance was a pattern that was at some point probably going to lead to my death, because how much longer can I test my strength and test how much I can endure without grinding myself into the ground and causing myself, by the way, all kinds of stressful, not only trauma responses, but stressful anxiety and emotions that were coming up because my body was fighting against these things that it really didn't want to have to go through. And I was being like, no, we're strong, we're strong, we're strong, ignoring all the, the stress hormones that my body is releasing and actually making my body pretty sick, right? Before I left New York and started on my healing journey, I actually had a couple of cancer scares. I am okay. None of these scares actually developed into cancer, but I thought it was really interesting that since moving to LA, resensitizing, getting into my body, controlling is a bad word to use, but really making sure that I am curating my experience to bring myself elevated emotions as much as possible, right? And to rely on my trust in my sense of safety and my ability to create for myself, and therefore be able to have elevated emotions even when the external reality around me is not always cooperating. I can at least trust that I can move through it and discern and create in a way that it will start cooperating hopefully pretty soon again. And having been out here and having done that work for a little while, going back and getting checked up, I had absolutely no signs of cancer. So I'm not a medical doctor, but that's the funny thing about endurance and about strength, is that we're actually compromising our immune systems in a lot of ways, and it's not actually healthy for us. So we want to get to the point of resiliency where instead of enduring and being stony faced, we're like, this is happening. I'm feeling emotions around it. What are these emotions telling me? How am I going to deal with them? Right? And our endurance becomes more of, our resiliency becomes more of this like Aikido. Not this like, I can get through anything, it's fine, I'm not feeling anything, I'm just going to be dead to the world. It's more of like, wow, I do feel things. But I feel things, I process them, I learn what I need to learn from them, and then I continue creating, and I continue moving forward. And I'm able to release those emotions because I have trust in my ability to create my future and to bring myself to a place where I can feel that kind of happiness again. And I trust in that happiness, and I believe in that happiness, and I have faith in that happiness enough to feel that happiness in the present moment while I'm creating. That's where you're really going to get to emotional self-mastery. If you have a lot of emotions coming up for you in the present, it's a positive. Stay with it. Just understand this is the floodgates opening after a long time of ignoring them, and work through what comes up with as much cocooning as you need to, and ride the wave. And ultimately, this is definitely going to be for your benefit, because again, our emotions are the key to our wisdom. They're the key to our self-mastery. And knowing how we feel about things is crucial, is necessary to creating a life that is full of the things that we love. So I hope this was helpful, and I will see you guys next time.